Let's go. This will be the only time I ever film myself at the gym. But here we are. Sweat monster shit. Lilypad. I'm not sure how to approach this episode. A good place to begin, I suppose. Brimming with potential. Perhaps we'll fly, perhaps we'll fall. But most importantly, let's leap. Lilypad, the story of my life. Hopping from one surface to the next, surrounded by murky water and mist. Over time, I have learned to find little pockets of rest on this watery journey. Perhaps Jesus' trick was following in the frog's footprints as well. Ha ha. I've befriended the alligators, made love with mermaids, been attacked by scorpions who promised not to sting. And so I find myself today covered in scars, inside and out, but somehow I have been able to keep my wahoo afloat. My joy, my inspiration, the pH balance of my 60% water makeup slightly tilted toward optimism. Sure, there's bitterness in my blood, wild werewolf snake hiss trauma, but most days I wake up with a twinkle, ready to rise to the occasion. Since I will be the guest on this episode, I will keep the intro short and sweet. What does a narcissist say? Enough about me. What do you think about me? Ha ha. Recently, I have hit a breakthrough, a new nimbleness in my Lilypad dance. Pain used to motivate much of my creation. Most of my life was spent trying to save the world. Ha ha, ho hum. But now I feel liberated from all that claptrap hogwash. I feel as if I've gone crazy in the best way, a soft, sweet, and graceful madness that in fact feels saner than any state I've experienced thus far. I enjoy my own company. I am content to talk to authors through the old wood pulp and ink telepathy phone. Perhaps I truly am the prince who turned back into a frog, and now I'm shedding my skin and eating it in the form of creative reflection. I embrace the spectrum. Give me the yuck, yum, hot, cold, dirty, clean, wild, tame. Give me the storm, the peace, all the pieces. I'm earning these wrinkles and giving these songs to the breeze. And on that note, before we premiere the theme song for this episode and bring on our special guest, me, I will read a quote from my brother Taylor. May he fly in peace. As I was preparing this episode, I poured through many of Taylor's poems, and lots of them called to me. But this 2-sentence banger spoke the loudest that day. Taylor wrote, "A broken man is not weak. A broken man is the strongest man in the world." Too much time trying to take the crown. Too much time trying to turn your frown upside down. Too much time trying to make you love me. Too much time, now there's nothing above me. Lilypad, I question your game. Lilypad, I question my aim. What's your intention? Depend on the dimension. An alien landed on my roof today. Pray, pray. And all that need improve slowly fades away. Let it breathe. Let it breathe. the dimension, hidden by henchmen. Rather be alone on the bench than a yes man. Switch my confession, it don't make sense in your language. Gotta make my own, I'm inventing. Sentence full grown, but the poem is regressing. Breastfeeding on bones, these old lessons. Skeleton close to the stones in the essence. I let it fly.
Welcome to the Pink Hearse podcast. This is a bonus episode that my son, that's exactly how this works, see, I'm his dad, wants you to have. And he's asked me, for reasons best known to himself, to ask me to interview him. So here we go. Hello, Zach.
Hey, Dad.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm grateful to be here with you and AJ. I'm settling into this chair. I had insomnia last night because I was excited for today, where we're going to be talking, creating a song from scratch, basically a Christmas of creativity for me. So again, I'm settling into my chair. I'm arriving. I can feel all of the buzzy excitement and, the nerves, worried about airplanes flying or dogs barking, and inviting whatever wants to come. So here I am.
Good, thank you. Just before we began, you lit a candle, which is in the shape of an owl and beeswax, which was actually originally from your godmother. So I bring to you a question your godmother had. I called her on my way here and said, what would you like me to ask Zach? And Amanda said, well, I guess I'd like you to ask him, what does he hope from these podcasts and what are they for? And does he think they can help somehow in this tumultuous time?
Thank you, Amanda. Hello. The podcast came out of a hibernation, mostly inspired by the death of my brother Taylor, who is also the co-founder of Channel the Sun. I've been creating for over 2 decades intensely, and it seemed like it was time to slow down and recalibrate and create a container or a cosmology for all of the creation, because it was leaking and exhausting me in a way that was not sustainable anymore. The podcast is for me, first and foremost. It's for Michael, the executive producer, because it's a collaboration. It's for Brad, who's also the co-creator of this show. And then we pulled in AJ. Unwillingly, we kidnapped him, and so it's for AJ too. That's where it started. I like to call this podcast a money laundering front for madness and joy and creativity. What do I hope it does? I've already seen evidence of that. First and foremost, I hope it inspires me to want to wake up with an extra pep in my step every day, and it damn sure does that. I wanted it to give me a gravitational pull with my pen to the page, which is something that, other than songwriting, has been inconsistent throughout my life, but feels important, and it's done that. So really, it's again for me and for my little friend crew here to channel all of our energy, musical, poetic, collaborative, visual, into a container that makes sense in this reality, and that there's a steadiness to it. Outside of that, which is just a bonus, I don't think anything needs any help. So not to be disrespectful to you, Amanda, in any way, because obviously you're not here and you didn't ask it, but as far as helping the world, I personally at this point don't think anyone needs any help. I guess if it can inspire some people, cool. If it can do what Tom Robbins and Sly and the Family Stone do for me, bring me joy, as you said earlier when I was reading you some Tom Robbins quotes from Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, helping us to think about life in different ways, then great. But really, yeah, that's what it is, you know?
Good. Thank you. So it's also interesting that she chose an owl candle, since you and I have a story about an owl for your conception. Let's pretend in the multiverse that you're on the other side of whatever this mystery is. And you're about to choose to come to Earth. And one of your friends goes, how come that? Why now? What would you say?
Unfinished business. It's time. The final act. Obviously, I'm riffing here. I'm trusting what's coming through. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's something about, the unfinished, like a grand finale, like all the other lives, if that's how this works, were preparing me for this trapeze walk.
Got
it. This trickster display of paradox and polarity and conjunctio, holding tensions. I chose my parents pretty wisely as far as coming in with intense energies, which created a tension within me. So I think that's what I would have said to my friends on the other side, and really to play. Like, this time I want to play, but I want to play in blood. I want it to be serious play. I want to bet it all. I want to, maybe when we come in, as you've written about in your poetry, and a lot of great, amazing, mystical people have recalled vague memories of coming into this world and forgetting is part of it, perhaps the amnesia of who you truly are, right? And then you're born into this vessel. What will I be this time, etc. I think I was a bit cocky when I came in this time, and I was like, you know what? Give me the double dose of the amnesia. Blindfold me. Make me dyslexic, and I'm going to backflip off the diving board into the wormhole and watch this motherfucker. I'm going to remember, and I'm going to shine it, and I'm going to hit a half-court shot off the blimp, and I'm going to tattoo my head, and I'm going to invent my own language, and I'm going to take myself so seriously, and then I'm going to laugh at myself, with myself, and be free before I die, physically.
Oh. Pretty good list. So in this continuing the multiverse kind of playfulness, in one level, there's only one of us here, as I've often heard you say and others say. So it would appear that you're being interviewed by your father, but just change chairs, sit inside of me, and have me sit inside of you. What would you have your father ask me, your son?
I can feel, first of all, the pressure of time in this moment, because I don't want to rush that answer. And I'm a bit afraid of the dead space for listeners, which obviously Prospect Lux can edit out, but I don't want that either. And I don't want to be stressed to find that answer, so bear with me, y'all. I guess I don't know. I don't know what I would ask myself through your eyes, but maybe What is it like being you? I don't know.
So one of the things that at least seems to me, and I like your silence on that question, which is actually quite eloquent answer, I think. I don't think words were necessary for that answer. Listening is a skill that, in my opinion, you have beautifully. Metaphor, you own it. Creativity, you used to try to drink from a fire hose, and now you can actually sip from it. What changed when you became a father?
Containment, anchoring, cracking open of my heart. I can hear his voice somewhere in the property here. I mean, I caught him in my hands upstairs. Sleep has been hard, mostly for Molly, but for both of us, for all of us. I always think of that idea that you've mentioned where children are cannibals and they eat all the parts of us that perhaps we no longer need, or maybe they eat some of what we need too. But he sped up my Michelangelo David statue process of me becoming more David, and raised the stakes, brought infinite laughter, pushed me to points in myself where I felt aware of ancestor rage in me that I didn't know was there, that terrifies me. His crying can be so intense, and it brings up something in me that feels unbearable, but I bear it. Maybe because I wasn't allowed to cry the same way, or I don't know. But yeah, he's definitely my greatest teacher, or one of my greatest teachers. And he simultaneously grounded me, aged me, wizened me, and also liberated me and made me feel more playful. Yeah, I don't know if that's eloquent or answers, but what you asked.
Pretty great description. It, in many, many ways, mirrors my experience of becoming your father. There's a photograph on your desk here of you with your arms spread toward the sky in a t-shirt and maybe a diaper or no pants on a beach. And you are enchanted with joy. And it's an Easter morning in Bodega Bay, and you have just seen your first kite take flight. And I would say, I guess I'm asking you, you have found him again, yes, that boy? Because is it fair to say, I see you now as a man on a beach with your eyes open to the sky, enchanted? Is that fair?
Big time. And it's been recent, as I wrote about in the intro of this episode, this new, the gentle madness, I call it, having gone from being that boy to then having our societal, family, cultural experiences that harden us, I would say.
I would say wound us.
Wound us, which in turn then you maybe
Yes.
armor in those places where the hard calcification might come of masks or identity. And so it's been, we were talking about earlier, all of the people that I've lost in this life, not to death, but just lost, and it's been a pattern. And Molly and I were speaking about it. Is that a reflection? Because she has her own versions of that. I think you definitely have your own versions of that. My favorite people have their experiences with that. And is that a reflection of, you know, you want to take accountability and responsibility. So examining yourself, what am I bringing to the table that might be causing this? Is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is there a righteousness? Is there whatever? But I look at it more, perhaps all that's true, but I still choose to view it from this stance of an invitation of my deeper self to come back to that boy, that playfulness, and things like rock and things like Taylor passing, and you know, a lot of positive, I guess positive, I don't even want to use that word, a lot of inspiring, joyful things have also helped me return to that essence. But a lot of the hard stuff, the abandonment, the failures from a rational standpoint, yeah, they just keep teaching me, testing me. I like the idea that whether it's a parent who may have wounded you in ways, like we all do inevitably, whether it's your mind, which often can get judged as this yappy piece of machinery that should go zen out. I don't look at those like that. I look at them as predator teachers, is what I like to call them these days. Predator teachers, poking you, teasing you, pushing you. But really what they're doing, which is infuriating, is coaxing out this breaking point, this cracking open, this hatching of that true child that we all have inside of us somewhere. But now that child, like, is it Oscar Wilde who says something along the lines of to end where you begin and to know it for the first time?
T.S. Eliot.
T.S. Eliot. Same idea. So now I'm that child, but I've gone through that journey. I've been the prodigal son. I've been the Icarus. Now I'm Icarus and Daedalus, both. So,
So in that story by Michael Ayrton, the voice of Daedalus says, I am a craftsman and I will survive. And the voice with which he describes his son, I have a son named Icarus, who is a hero. He does not build. Heroes are about death. I am about life. He is my son and I love him. And I will make wings for him and I to escape this island prison of wood and wax and wings. And I will urge him to not fly too close to the sun, for it will melt the wax, and I know he will. And he will perish in the sea. And I am Daedalus, and I am his father, and I will survive, and I will mourn him. And yes, when you take both of those inside you, as you just said you do, then
it's fun. It becomes a dance.
But when you're only one or the other, as you say, you resist.
Exactly.
So the idea, many people have said, we bless from our wounds. What does that mean to you?
It's the wounded healer. It's the place where you're wounded is where you're going to pay the most attention. And that's going to inspire you to either disappear maybe or numb yourself out, or to go deep into that with the ravenous hunger and ferocity of an animal to figure out what the fuck is wrong and why does it hurt so much. And in that exploration, perhaps you see that it was an invitation and you fall in love with these crafts and these ways and these medicines. And I love the story of Chiron, the half minotaur, centaur, man, healer, craftsman who was an assistant to Achilles and many gods. I believe he was kind of a mortal immortal, and how he could heal anyone's wound, but his wound he could never heal. So there's something in that, you know, we bless from the wounds. And I broke my ankle playing basketball with Taylor, and to this day it aches and hurts and causes me to limp. And maybe it'll go away when it's time, or maybe it won't, but that limp feels important, especially for someone like me who could fly off the face of the earth and have flown off the face of the earth, has. And what's been coming up a lot in my therapy session yesterday with my somatic experiencing practitioner is this silent scream that's always at the back of my skull or my consciousness. And it feels like this great pressure, this vacuum. I don't know if that resonates with you, but it's this fear. So having insomnia, then you can start to feel it when you're there in your bed. It could be triggered from all sorts of things, but it's there, always there. And a lot of the time working and creating and going fast is a way to, you know, hopefully deal with it a little bit, but also to just stay in your endorphins so you don't have to fully deal with it. What I came to in the session was that the silent scream really is an exhaustion, and it's again like the predator teacher. It's not a villain. I don't believe in villains. It's not a scary being that's going to destroy me because I'm afraid of the scream for some reason. I'm scared I'll lose my mind. It's actually an exhausted representation of the claustrophobia and the tenseness in my animal body and psyche from having gone to a mental hospital 10 years ago, briefly, having lost so many people for whatever reason, but often because I was too much. It's about me being too much. I'm too inspired. I'm too, is he manic? Is he too depressed? Is he too much? Too loud? Too intense? Too on it? Texting, make sure, okay, I'm very, and I'm tired of that because I'm not too much. And I can feel this part that just wants to like, let myself be fucking crazy because I'm not crazy. And I don't want a gold star anymore from anyone who says I am or I'm not. And I don't want to allow the fact that I haven't made money off of my art in a serious way. I've made, to determine my happiness or my worth. Even saying that, I could hear a voice of someone I love saying, well, don't say you have made money. I'm like, I'm trying to eradicate my psychic environment from all voices that have gotten woven like ivy into my being and are squeezing me, and to let me dance. Because if this is all one thing, my paranoia and my awareness of self is really creating this eggshell dance that's driving me crazy. So that silent scream, I'm trying to bring it into my body. Yesterday I was doing that, wiggle it out. We're going to write a song today. AJ and I are going to shoot a music video from scratch. That to me all is this, safe, beautiful way to wiggle out and to be myself and to free myself. And that's also my wound, right? That's the same full circle with that. The wounds of being judged, the wounds of being young and traveling, moving and being in a bunch of different schools and being misunderstood, and teachers saying I'm a natural leader and putting me in awkward positions and wanting me to, just holding me to higher standards, and being encouraged to be yourself and be authentic and be creative, and then ascending in the music industry and then kind of being shut out for doing the very things that got me where I was. So there's a frustration and an exhaustion, and it makes no sense. And it's that trickster teacher who's like, do this. Okay, you master that. And then you say, look, I did it. And the teacher says, I didn't tell you to do that. Go do that. You run around, you master that, you come back, the teacher says, okay, do that now. And to the point where it's just like, you know what? I think that the lesson here is you're free already. You're born free. You're always free. Dance your crazy dance. And that's what I'm trying to do. So even talking right now feels very clunky and clumsy.
Of course. I remember you as a little boy with a basketball. I remember a grass court in one of our homes. I remember watching you at birthday parties when all the kids are playing pin the tail on the donkey and you're watching the dads who are probably bored playing basketball by themselves.
It's like rock.
And I remember one day saw you because you stood as still as a statue for like 20 minutes, just imprinting what they were doing.
Mm.
And one guy just did a little bounce pass and said, "Hey, kid, you want to give it a shot?" Like with this complete condescension, but thinking he was being very nice. And you took the ball and you dribbled past all the dads and you did a layup and they all went, "Yeah, well, it's kind of time to leave, I guess. Let's." And you were like, "Where'd everybody go?" Which is kind of what you're describing.
Yeah, it's how I feel. Where'd everybody go?
Where'd everybody go?
There's a line in a song that I wrote for Taylor that says, "What's a pioneer if there's no one there?" But then I go on to say, "I never noticed you appear. I never noticed you were always here." So it's that.
Sure.
That's the freedom that I've been feeling recently that I wrote about. It's like, man, me against the world and it makes no sense and I'm mad and I got to stand up and I got to be myself and blah, blah, blah.
So let me
and then it's free because you're like, oh, I was talking to myself.
Right.
What a good game.
Let me give you an image. So some people have also said, you can also tell the scouts and the pioneers because they're the ones with arrows in their back.
Mm.
So using that image, be the people shooting at your own back.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, what you're aiming at.
Yeah.
Is that there is no people outside doing anything to you. It's you doing it to you.
Exactly.
Well, when you do that, people will fall away.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are invested in, I don't know, other people did this to me.
Even with this interview, I had expectations. I've been putting out so much material featuring other amazing friends on this show. And I do this sometimes. I get lost in the art and I'm not even there anymore. And I have some good friends of mine who say, man, people I respect, they say, don't forget about yourself. Like it's almost they're implying that I hide behind like a painting or an animation because I think there's a beauty in that. I love curating. It's not about me, but I also think that there's a bit of like a fear or a not trusting myself enough. So with this interview, I was like, you know what? I want to talk a bit, not just in the written way, not with the cryptic art covering me all the time. I want to talk. And I think I have some advice to give, which is a paradox because I don't think there's really anything you can teach anyone. But being someone who's, as my son stomps around like a thunder god upstairs, someone who continues to be enmeshed in creativity in a rugged, independent way for a long time, I have learned and am learning some things. And maybe that's not where this interview is going, I guess is my point, because I can also feel that there's this kind of cloaking of myself as I try to show myself and be myself, that there's also this hidden fog that comes. And I think of the alchemical practices of, like don't talk too much, or you don't need to share the secrets, or the invisible ones see you. So I'm just feeling that right now. There's a part of me as the producer is like, are we getting clips that I can post in short form on YouTube and Instagram that will be like, well, yeah, that guy's fucking brilliant.
Well, may I say, as your father who's honored to be sitting on this side of you, the silence you had a while back trying to answer a question was the most eloquent thing.
Yeah, let's post a short clip of silence.
Well, and that's kind of right, isn't it?
It is.
Because where we come from, at least I feel, the place of singularity. Silence is not silent. Everything's present and nothing is manifest.
So I'm flowing a little bit on that. And I am, you're too kind to say I'm a great listener, because I am and I'm not. I'm working on it. What you're making me think is it's the moth to flame, and the flame is the silence. In this moment, that's the metaphor that comes through. How long can you maintain your form close to the flame? What is that last shard of moth body that is still there before it becomes the flame? That's what I do, I think, in many ways. So even in this moment, I can feel that silent scream part that wants to go, boom, and just metaphor and fly and stop trying to care about anything around this thing. It wants to dance. It wants to wrestle. It wants to slap itself, not in a mean way. It wants to burn these books and then rub the ash on my face.
Sure. It might also be saying my diaper's full of shit.
But anyway, that just came to me of like
I think it's interesting.
this nice tension
like that, yes.
Because I don't want to do all that.
Right.
I don't think I need to literally do all that. And that's the dance for me of being the flame and the moth.
And that's the difference.
Holding that distance.
And that's the difference between you now and you in the mental institution.
Yeah, I used to be in the flame all the time.
When I was the first person to see you in that lockdown place. And nothing has changed from that, except you have now learned to navigate what you just described.
Yeah.
And how beautiful that is.
It's amazing.
So I would guess one of your great memories, although it was to have that experience.
You want to talk about it?
I want to talk about only if you do, but when you go through the world and the people you've met, most people don't know what that is, but you do. And by the way, one of your two brothers does too. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
If you can guess which one, you will win a subscription to Patreon. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
we're talking initiation.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm grateful to you, my mom, Phil, different people who showed up at different times to help me hold it in a way that there was a fear and a seriousness that needed to be there, because you can permanently spin out in these states. But also we're able to show me that it's okay and that it's actually part of my path, and that in other traditions, it's as common as, you know, a grad student taking a course in whatever. That as someone who wears the loose identity of being a poet, which I do like that word. And I like how in Tom Robbins, he says, you know, something about how sad it is that there's a great decline of poets right now. I don't hold it so pretentiously, but I'm a poet, you know.
What is poetry?
I mean, to kind of borrow from Michael Meade, who borrowed from someone else, I think it's like the language of the soul. It's the attempt to speak between the words, to bypass the logic, but also respect the logic, but also bring, you know, it's this dance. It's like trying to talk about life and death and joy and pain all at once. It's like Motown. It's, you know, so being that, or choosing to wear that role. I also think the poet is dying in its form, because it also represents it's not a job that seems very lucrative in this day and age. It's kind of like a nonsense job. It's like, even cowgirls get the blues. She's obsessed with hitchhiking. She's the best hitchhiker in the world. What does that get you?
A lot of rides.
A lot of rides. You keep moving, you know. So it's there's something about that, you know, clown, trickster.
Maybe poetry is like a sandwich without the bread.
Yeah.
Maybe prose is a sandwich with the bread.
Sure. That's interesting. No, it's good.
Who knows?
But yeah, so that experience at 24, living in Harlem, having a chemically induced psychosis, for those of you who aren't aware, because I have spoken about it and written about it and sung about it, being obsessed with being skinny because I'd gotten heavy for a little while, being in a band that was garnering attention, being filmed and photographed often, being sponsored by a gin company and having cases of gin delivered to my house, being celebrated for my creativity and madness, reading too much Kurt Vonnegut and listening to Yellow Wolf and watching Bronson with Tom Hardy, thinking I could figure out a secret to the universe. That was my holy grail, first glimpse and I spun out because I couldn't hold it, and I fractaled, and I was recruited by a shaman witch doctor who smoked crack in Harlem. I was walking between worlds. I saw things that other people who were not in my state didn't understand. It's happened again. I've seen reality glitch in ways where normal bystanders say, "What just happened there?" I've gone down those rabbit holes of conspiracy, of, is this a benevolent universe, or is there some sort of like high stakes thing? I made a fool of myself. Big important word there, the fool.
Yep.
And I was obviously just fooling myself in thinking I was the hero, the Icarus, the chosen.
You're wearing a yoga symbol on your chest. You're describing the fool. It's a tough medicine. The first person the Heyoka fucks with is himself. The first asshole of Heyoka disappears up is their own. Once they've done that, they're able to come out with a medicine that can help other people perhaps extricate from their assholes.
Yeah. I love what Michael Meade said on our episode, that the trick with the trickster is keeping it close to healing.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I've been sitting with that one.
Yep.
It's all fun and games to just be the joker, or just to fuck with people, or just be tricky, but that feels shallow and empty and like eating junk food.
I've never felt you do that.
No, I never did do that, but I was coming with an intensity, and now I'm learning to hold it lightly again and celebrate and go to those intense places, which can scare me. It's funny. It's like if we're all in this room by ourselves with shadows and you go, rawr, and then you go, ah. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? It actually, I love that image. I was teasing with Rock and Molly, and that came up of like the lion who goes, rawr, and then goes, woo, and they scare themselves. You know what I mean? That's all this is. And as I hold things lightly and am able to go from intense poet man, I can feel the old echoes in me, which is also connected to the silent scream that says, uh-oh, watch out, man. Your eyes feel a little different. So I always notice like the pupils. When I dream too hard, when I create too intensely, it's like, whoa, my eyes feel weird. It's like a drug.
Wow.
So I'll go into those states and I feel that paranoia faintly now. Uh-oh, watch out, man. Careful. Little voices of old, not actually voices, but feeling voices of old friends and doctors, I guess, whoever. But now what I'm able to do better than I ever have is say, I hear you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Because I want context. But I'm okay. And then I can come back. This morning I woke up. As I mentioned, I couldn't sleep. Well, wrote a poem. Shameless plug. I'm writing a secret book of poetry, which will be done in a year.
Since you read it to me, it's a beautiful poem.
Thank you. Wrote the poem, went to the gym, got ready for this, came down, had technical difficulties. I'm not a technical guy. Figured them out. One of you were late. Production hat, airplanes flying. What time is Rock coming back? Boom, 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 all these things. Okay, be here. And I'm just saying all of that to say I'm getting better at navigating the back and forth of switching from boom to dad to dishes to this, and not just overriding, because then it can become really stuck energy that gets tangled, and then I have to deal with it at some point in a big breakdown, but actually processing it as I go and transitioning. Not perfect by any means, but I'm aware and I'm getting better at saying, okay, now this, etc.
Well, I've known you a while, and I've never seen you be more fully present than you are right now.
Thank you. And I have one foot in both worlds right now, though.
That's how you do it.
There's a real quick. There's a quote in this Tom Robbins book, if I can find it. Talk about Heyoka, as you mentioned. Tom Robbins is a serious Heyoka, and I'm rereading his entire collection, and I'm almost done for the second or third time, and I can't wait to read him throughout my life. And if anyone hears this and knows Tom Robbins, I would love to talk to you in flesh, although I talk to you all the time this way. The quote is, "Life isn't simple. It's overwhelmingly complex. The love of simplicity is an escapist drug." I love that. Like alcohol, it's an anti-life attitude. These simple people who sit around in drab clothes in bleak rooms sipping peppermint tea by candlelight are mocking life. They are unwittingly on the side of death. Death is simple, but life is rich. I embrace that richness. The more complicated, the better. I revel in disorder but your cave isn't disorderly, protested Sissy. It's neat and clean. I'm not a slob, if that's what you mean. Slobs don't love disorder. They're ineffectual people who are disorderly because they can't help themselves. It's not the same. I set my cave in order, knowing that life's disorder will only mess it up again. That's beautiful. That's right. That's part of the paradox. The beauty of simplicity is the complexity it attracts. The beauty of simplicity, you say? Then do you find value in simplicity? Then you do find value in simplicity. You've contradicted yourself. Julian had taught Sissy to sniff out contradictions. Of course I've contradicted myself. I always do. Only cretins and logicians don't contradict themselves. And in their consistency, they contradict life.
Oh.
So, like I've been told, it's too much. I've had people say, I can't work with you anymore, man, because you're doing too many projects at the same time. It's not possible to do this podcast. You don't have a team. You don't have a budget. Why are you going to do a podcast, write a song, and film the music video, and then poor AJ, you're asking him to edit the whole thing today? Why would you do that? You know why? Last time, I'll read this quote that I read you before. And it's so beautiful to have a friend like Tom Robbins in this form to affirm, and as you trudge the path of yourself, at some point letting go of all of the things you were holding on to for safety. And obviously this is still another thing I'm holding on to for safety, and I'm aware of that. But it's wonderful to have friends in and out of time who say, aha, and confirm and affirm, pardon me, things that, I've been suspecting in my heart for forever. Hitchhiking, smitchhiking. Don't you see that it doesn't matter what activity Sissy chose? It doesn't matter what activity anyone chooses. If you take any activity, any art, any discipline, any skill, take it and push it as far as it will go. Push it beyond where it has ever been before. Push it to the wildest edge of edges. Then you force it into the realm of magic. And it doesn't matter what it is that you select, because when it has been pushed far enough, it contains everything else. I'm not talking about specialization. To specialize is to brush one tooth. When a person specializes, he channels all of his energies through one narrow conduit. He knows one thing extremely well and is ignorant of almost everything else. That's not it. That's tame and insular. Is that how you say it? That's tame and insular and severely limiting. I'm talking about taking one thing, however trivial and mundane, to such extremes that you illuminate its relationship to all other things, and then taking it a little bit further to that point of cosmic impact where it becomes all other things.
You know what that is to me? So we spoke earlier a little bit about the singularity. If you take that one thing, as far as it will go, it takes you back to the singularity.
Exactly. And that's that. I won't go on and on quoting Tom Robbins, but obviously I suggest if you are barking up this tree and still listening, that he's a big, ingredient in my potions. But that idea that he talks about of the individual and the individuality. Pause 1 sec. That was a commercial break, but nothing is for sale. So anyway, I think I was saying something about how Tom Robbins talks about the individual pursuit and the quirks and the idiosyncrasies of falling in love with your own passion and toolbox is much more effective than joining a group or doing things because some invisible potential presence is going to be mad at you if you don't, or because society needs you to do this. And although it might appear to be selfish based off those people's agendas mostly, that by following that individual connection to the oneness, like you just said, the singularity, as you said, it brings you right back into the singularity and the oneness.
And some people think the silent scream is what we all have from the trauma of leaving the singularity to come here.
And that's for sure what I feel. So, to be continued in other ways. I guess my interviewer habit is kicking in. I'm trying to switch roles. Do you have any final question? And then I want to leave the people with a little, infomercial.
I guess the only question I have is, do I get my normal fee for doing this?
You mean negative 80? Yeah, you get negative 85 today, actually. A little bonus.
No, when I'm around you and you remind me of everything you've reminded me of today before AJ came and since, you help me come home to myself. And I think that's what we're all doing here is we're trying to come home to ourselves. I think that's what you're talking about. So I don't know who first said we're walking each other home, but whoever they were, God bless them, because I think that's what we're walking each other home.
Big time. And you do the same for me, and you all do. We all do for each other. So back to Amanda's first question, I guess that would be my main hope, is if it can make you come home to yourself.
Exactly.
And it has been doing that for me. And that's my business. And outside of that, it's not my business. But yeah, that's a nice ripple effect.
Well, from another powerful shaman, Candace, who said years ago, and you've heard this from me ad infinitum, I teach you nothing. What I do is I dance beside you until you get the rhythm.
And I always want to edit that and say not the rhythm till you get your rhythm.
Well, that's right. That's a good edit.
Yeah.
And then another way she described her work is she said, I take out the garbage, I bring in the groceries, and what you cook is your business.
Yeah, for sure. And so I'll leave us with one thing. One thing that contains a few things, a singularity and a fractaled version. So on our podcast and with most of my creations, there is a crypticness, as I mentioned before, of cloaking everything in so much art and metaphor that I feel like sometimes we get lost. So in the vein of walking in both worlds and holding everything lightly, the part of me that wants to tell you what we're up to, ask for your support if you feel called, has had a lot of trauma around feeling needy and egotistical. And I actually think now that that's more egotistical to think that. So I'm just going to keep it real. You know my name. You're listening to the show, so you know the show. Channel the Sun is the collective. We are an independent operation. And a few ways you can support us if you feel called is to leave a review wherever you listen. Apparently that helps. I'm such an existential bastard that I'm like wary of my ambition. I'm like, what are we trying to do? Why do you want to grow? Be careful of that. But it helps something. It helps allow us to continue creating. And that's important to me. So anything from leaving a comment, a review, perhaps sharing it with a friend if you feel inspired. Subscribing to our Patreon is very helpful. It's $10 a month. You can pay more if you wish. And with your subscription, you not only support our movement of creativity and exploration, it's not a movement, but the movement of our creativity. You also receive access to unreleased music, music videos, poetry, and art that is only available through our Patreon. Yeah, I think I've said all of that, the spiel, but I just really wanted to take a moment because people in the past have said, oh, I didn't know, I thought you were signed. I thought, your stuff looks really cool. I thought there's money behind it. There's not. This is blood, sweat, and joy. Yeah. So no desperation, but a lot of gratitude and appreciate you guys. And so a couple other announcements. Season 2 is underway. We still have by the time you hear this, I don't know where we'll be exactly, but a bunch of episodes in season 1 still coming. And season 2 is underway, and it's definitely a much more ambitious, exciting, there's animations and characters and a fairy tale subplot. So if you would like to help support with that, reach out, you can donate to that cause. And lastly, I'll make one special announcement that I'm working on a book of poetry. Long time coming. I'm going to take a year to write it, so it won't be ready for a while. But I wanted to plant that seed for whoever is listening, still listening to this podcast. And I'm going to read you the poem I wrote this morning because it feels like a nice place to leave this episode. All right. October 22nd. Showing up for the no poem. Awake before dawn, binoculars and coffee, waiting for the poetry bird. Far off, I heard it singing, but it never showed its face. My coffee spilled, my fears came true. But then I saw these words. Expecting a cardinal, a crow comes. Expecting a poem, a no poem comes. Some days brilliant, some days down. But when we don't show up, a bird behind its little binoculars frowns. Peace and love, y'all. See you soon. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, AJ. Thanks, y'all. One. Too much time trying to take the crown. Too much time trying to turn your frown upside down. Too much time trying to make you love me. Too much time, now there's nothing above me. So look at this. Lilypad, I question your game. That's the new Hummer driven by a hummingbird. Lilypad, you just told me that. Where's your peace bus? Oh, it's hidden. Should I get him out?
No, he's here.
What about giraffe?
Yeah.
The tag is kept on by request. Rock. And all that need and proof, it slowly fades away. Let it breathe. Lilypad, I question your name. Lilypad, I question your game. Lilypad, Lilypad, I question your aim. My aim, I mean, shit. I should actually do that. Yo, what's the dimension? Hidden by a henchman. Rather be alone on the bench than a yes man. Switch my confession. It don't make sense in your language. Gotta make my own, I'm inventing. Full grown, but the poem is regressing. Breastfeeding on bones, these old lessons. Skeleton close to the stones and the essence. Let it fly.